Hi, my name's Paul Hughes, and my role as a director of the trust is also the trust rep to the football club. Uh, Thanks for having a look at what is effectively our first interview with manager Harry. Many thanks to Jack for agreeing to do the interview, and thanks to you guys for the questions that you put in. Apologise for those whose questions we may not have time to fit in. Right, so that's enough for me. I shall pass on to Harry and Jack, and I'm sure you'd rather listen to them. Cheers.
Thanks, Paul. Harry, again, just to reiterate, thanks for doing this, obviously. It's good of you to do it. I think it's great. It's a community thing, isn't it? And look, it doesn't matter if it's Oldham Athletic or Galatasaray, another team you used to play for a long time ago. It's good that people come to the wicket, in my opinion, and do stuff like this. So, listen, I'm going to chuck in a few questions of my own about your football career as we progress, if that's okay. But let's start with some questions that have been sent to the trust. Potential fan questions for Harry Kewell, it says here. So this one is from John Ball of Ashton, who asks this, Harry. Is the amount of goals we score down to the quality of our strikers or more to do with the way we play?
It's a good question. I mean, we, as a club, as a football team, everybody likes to score goals. There's, that's the reason why you play football is to score goals. We practice a lot on movement. We practice a lot of entries into the final third to create these chances. And yes, in training, you can get down to the vital aspect of the final product. And if one of the players do miss, you can kind of reverse back to it and give them another chance and to go through it. So you can practice a lot of the final touches. But for me, I think it comes down to the actual quality of our strikers, because the one thing you really can't teach in football is that final thing on match day, that final shot. Now, like I said, you can practice it a lot in training where there's no fans. I know we don't have fans, but the stadium, what lies on the game, it could be the 89th minute and you're one-on-one with the keeper and you're running through, and then you've got to kind of slot it past. And at training, you'll see players go up there and try to dink the keeper, round the keeper, skip round the keeper. And if they fail, they can do it again because there's nothing riding on it. But the reason why top goal scorers score goals is because they can do it in the 89th minute. And I believe we have that quality in our team. And the reason why we are scoring goals is they are getting confident. They are practicing a lot, but they've got that quality in that last minute of the game to be able to feed that ball into the back of the net. So yeah, I mean, the likes of Conor McElhaney, Davis Dunn is shining now. Bahambula's starting to rise up. Danny Rowe was fantastic. What a quality striker he was. Zach Dernley, he's coming back now, but he's finishing in training. He's excellent. Now he's just got to concentrate and do that again in games. And George Blackwood's coming back now as well. So I do have quality in front of goal. So that's probably the main reason that we are scoring a lot of goals.
Okay, thank you for that. Neil Etherington in Cheshire says, Joyce Johnson, a centre-half and former captain of Liverpool under-21s, has just signed on loan at Wigan for the remainder of the season from Feyenoord. Do you know him? And could he be a possible target for next season? Oh, and he also says he's put a tenner on Athletic to be promoted this year. Have I invested wisely? Responsibly is my advice, Harry.
I look, as in getting promoted this year. I think this league has thrown so many spanners in the work, and I think you can kind of see every team beating any team now. I mean that's gone throughout the whole leagues. Where maybe 15 years ago you'd probably look at teams and go, no, they would win in these games. Now you're looking at it and go, I actually don't know who's going to win. So as far as where we're sitting in the table and the distance we're off from the top and the distance we're off from relegation, we're sitting comfortable, but we don't like comfortable. We like to push ourselves and to go to that next level. And I think if we just concentrate on each of our games, we'll have any chance, as we'll have as good a chance as anybody else. As far as the young player that you mentioned, no, I haven't heard of him yet. But I will have a look out, and I'll have a nosy at him.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, to be fair, some of these questions, I wouldn't say that will be redundant. And at the point of time when Neil asked that question, I mean, anything could have happened between now and then. So, okay, let's move on. This comes from Mark Lund. Oh, I like this one. In your opinion, what are the comparison levels like if you compare the EFL and the Australian leagues, which you played in, of course?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I like that.
I get asked this quite a lot, and I wonder what a lot of leagues would compare like. I mean, this is not just what the EFL would compare like to the A League, but I also say, what would the Scottish League be like if they came into the Premier League or the EFL, and vice versa, a lot of the European leagues? What would they all compare to? But if we're just concentrating on the A League, first and foremost, where are we playing this league? Are we playing it in Australia or we're playing it in England? Because that's the big question, because of the heat plays a major factor in where you play. Now, if a lot of the EFL clubs went over to Australia and jumped into the A League, I think a lot of the A League teams would win because of the conditions, and it would take the EFL quite a while, 2 or 3 seasons, to get used to the temperature and the conditions. Because even for myself, when I went over there, the first year I went over there, I did a 5-week pre-season, and it took me 4 months to get into the season. The second time I went over there, I did a 3-month pre-season, and I went straight into the season perfect. So for me, the conditions play a lot. But if we take the A League to bring over here, I would probably say they're roughly around League One, League Two standard. Lot of potential. A lot of great players that play in the A League that do come over, but vice versa, you have unbelievable talent in League One and Two. They've taken a wrong turn somewhere in their career, or they've had an injury and they've been put back a little bit. But the talent that I've seen at the 3 clubs that I've been at, it's been fantastic. And like I said, I enjoy working at this level because I love coaching and I love producing players, and I like seeing players progress and going on to that next level.
Graham Hughes says, this comes from France, from Graham Hughes. He said, did you always see yourself going into management? And which of your former managers made the biggest impression on you? It's a double barrel question, this. And his second question is, do you still watch Emmerdale?
Well, I'll answer the second question first. No, I don't watch Emmerdale now because my wife's not on it no more.
That's right, yeah.
But still a fantastic show. But no, to answer his first question, did I see myself as a coach when I was playing? No, only because I was concentrating on being a footballer first and foremost. And I never understood, since I've been into coaching, I've never understood how you could be a player coach, because both roles are that intense that you have to concentrate, and there's no way that you could split them. So if you're a player and you've got to concentrate on your role because you've got to do a job, not only for yourself, but for the team. And then as a manager, you have the whole team to look after. Every individual, every team, every time you go out there for a game, you've got to know exactly what you're doing. So there's possibly no way that you could focus on being a coach while you're a player. As soon as I stopped playing, I went straight into coaching and absolutely loved it. I did my badges, thoroughly enjoyed it, got my opportunity at Watford, and absolutely just went into it full on, gave it all. And you know what? Never look back. Enjoy it more than actually playing coaching. And as far as idols or looking at coaches that I've worked with previously, as a player, people used to always say, what kind of player do you want to be? You know, who's your favorite idol? Who do you want to be? None. I want to be myself. I always said I want to be myself. I want to make my own mistakes. I want to make my own ideas. I want to create my own identity. And it's the same as a football coach. I don't replicate. I don't want to imitate. I don't want to be another manager that I've worked for. I want to be my own self. I come up with my own ideas. I want to be my own tactician. I want to come up with my own strategies and be someone different. Yes, I've looked at certain things that coaches have told me off the field, of things that I've seen throughout my career, which I've rang coaches on one or two occasions and said, how would you deal with this situation? Because it's usually a situation that's off the field, not on the field, because I kind of handle it with it on the field. But no, I don't kind of replicate myself off any of the managers that I had, even though I've had some great ones and some questionable ones. But that's only my opinion. In football, you're allowed your opinion. But for me, no, I want to be my own coach.
Okay, I'll just warn you about this. There is a David Wheater alert question coming up. It's from John Cooper. But first of all, John says he thinks you're doing a really good job. He likes the way you conduct yourself regarding the management of the Latics. And he asks the second question. They've scored a lot of goals and provided some great entertainment. However, there's always a but, isn't there, Harry? You'll be aware of this. You've conceded a lot, which, despite the old adage, you defend from the front. Is this a result of poor defending by defensive players? And the David Wheater alert, will it be available in the second half of the season?
Well, that's a big question. First and foremost, I think if you look back on the statistics of the EFL, especially League Two, from teams that do get promoted to teams that sit in the middle to teams that get relegated. Now, if we take last year, say for the likes of, let's just pick Crewe because they got promoted. Yep. We will take let's say my old club Crawley, and let's say one of the teams that got relegated. Say who was the team that got relegated last year? Oh, it's just lost me. Can't remember. One of the teams that got relegated last year. Anyway, if we look at the goals that they've conceded, all right, we would say Crewe was roughly around maybe say 42 to 43 goals. Crawley maybe around about 47, 48. And the team that relegated maybe 50, 52. When you flip side on the goals that they scored, Crewe scored around about 80 goals. Crawley scored around about maybe 50 goals. And then the team that got relegated would have scored maybe around about 35 goals, maybe 40 goals. So for me, you are always going to concede in League Two. Every game, you will concede a goal. Now, you try to limit that. But unfortunately, at the moment, we are conceding one or two many more goals. But it's football. And you do try to stop it. And I'd like to be able to sit there and have clean sheets. But I think it's a rarity especially in League Two. So we're playing a way that, we may have to score more goals than you to win games. And yeah, it is exciting. And don't get me wrong, I'm not the one that likes to go behind. I like to score and kind of keep the lead and have a relaxing afternoon. But at the moment, Oldham, we're not playing like that. We seem to concede goals first and foremost, and then we kind of step up and we come to the level. So for me, look, we have some great defenders. I love all my defenders. They work very hard. They're very intelligent. They want to understand it. We have meetings all the time. They want to talk about it. We on the pitch every day. Like even today's training session, we'll be going through it again. We make sure everybody knows their positioning. But unfortunately, there's some talented players out there. And for as much as you do your defensive side of it, it takes that little bit of genius to score goals. And at the moment, we are struggling in that defensive side. But like I said, we're all working very hard into making it right. And we'll get there in the end. We'll get there. And as far as the second half of David Wheater, I mean, look, I'll say it. Look, our CEO, Carl Evans, has made the statement of what's happening with David Wheater. So I'll just have to leave it at that.
Okay, let's move on. Martin Knott says, most of us find the difference between our away form and home form totally baffling. I'm sure you do as well, by the way, because I know we've had this conversation before. Normally, away game obstacles to getting a result are potential tiredness through travel and unfamiliarity with the stadium and playing surface. What else are we going to do that is different to playing at home? It seems something must be different to achieve a different outcome.
Maybe it's the fans. Maybe we need the fans.
Yeah, look, good answer. Yeah.
Maybe it's as simple as that, because when you look at our home form, except for let's maybe take maybe 3 or 4 games out where we have been poor. Majority of the time we've been very good. And when we're on top of teams, sometimes you need that little bit of kickstart, that little bit more of a momentum push. And that's where I've heard where the 12th man kind of kicks in with Boundary Park. And maybe if we had that, maybe the intimidation as well to scare opponents, because let's face it now, if we look at the whole picture of football, looking at teams going to Trafford, Anfield, the Emirates, or Stamford Bridge, or White Hart Lane, and not being affected, and actually going there and getting results. So this is not just happening in League Two, where home form and away form, it's different here. It's happening all over the place. So it just shows you the how important fans are when it comes to home form. And because teams are coming in now going, well, this is not as scary because I've got no one actually on top of me. So I'm going to go out there and enjoy my football. So maybe we can answer that question. If this home form and away form still continues when we have the fans come in, maybe we have to have a look at it. But at the moment, I just think it's something that's happened in football where a lot of players now and a lot of teams are going away and thinking, well, there's no fans here. I can just go out there and treat this like a training game and go out there and enjoy myself. And you never know what can happen. So
does that reduce the pressure sometimes, or the whole? I mean, for me, going watching and reporting on games this particular season, there's a very different atmosphere, and I'm just wondering from a playing perspective, does that put less pressure on the player? I mean, the 2 grounds you mentioned, Old Trafford, it doesn't matter where it is, Old Trafford, Anfield. We all know what's like, and you've played at those places with fans in those stadiums, Harry. Does that kind of, do players approach it differently? I think that's maybe the question.
100%. I used to, when I used to play at Liverpool, and we used to play teams, and teams used to just come there and defend, and I'd be sitting there and I'd be talking to the back, and I'd be going, why aren't you playing? Like, why aren't you actually getting out there playing? You're going, are you serious? He goes, we're at Anfield. I mean, this is Anfield, man. We're nervous. Like, come on, we ain't doing nothing. We're just defending. And you'd be like, really? I mean, I've never had that. I loved playing away from home because it was, if you could silence the away fans, that means you're doing your job. It's always a bonus playing at home because your fans are always going to be behind you. Playing away was the key. If you could get the away fans to hate you, or, to try to jeer you, or you knew you had them rattled, and then you could get at your opponents. So when you're playing now at clubs where fans are quite like vocal and they want to get involved, and and you got players there thinking, oh no, I just want an easy game. I don't want to be under pressure and all that. That can play a big part in it. So like I said, I think this season, I think if you look at a lot of teams, home and away forms, I think they're going to be quite up and down.
Yeah, I think we've seen that already throughout the whole structure of football. Yes. By the way, I think, well, yes. Certainly, in the higher tiers, there's no question about that. So I was watching Sky the other night, actually, and they show a lot of games from the past, don't they? I saw you club one in from the edge of the penalty area at Anfield as well, mate. It was, I thought, yeah, there you go. Right, Steve Nichols, I think you kind of answered this. So, I think there's a little bit of duplication here, but he says, why do we seem, he's referring to the Latics here, unable to get a proper defensive unit in place while seemingly being overmanned in other areas of the pitch, albeit with some reasonably talented players in this league?
I don't. What's he saying?
I think you kind of answered it. Talk about the defence, I think, and then you kind of went into detail a couple of questions ago about that. That's why I thought it was a little bit of duplication. Let's move. Sorry, go on.
No. Look. Even to try and answer. I mean, look. At the moment, I have 5 centre halves who are all fighting for the 2 positions, and look, there's a big thing about trying to get the consistency, trying to get a back 4 or / back 5. Have that kind of connection, all that kind of stuff. But then you've got to deal with sometimes injuries. You've got to deal with, look, we're not playing 1 game a week, especially this year. We're about to head into now even, like a Saturday, Tuesday, I think for about another 10 or 11 games. And I think it's, a bit unfair, as much as they are fit professionals and they're working hard, but with the trouble and the constant games, especially in these conditions as well, I think it's a little bit unrealistic to think that they're going to play all these games. So you have to have little connections here and there. They may not be perfect at the moment, and it takes time. And I think the one thing that a lot of people must understand is that this team's only been put together this year. You know, I started with 8 players, 8 players, and then we had to kind of connect a few other players together. Now, did we get all the players right at the start? Probably not 100% right, but maybe 90 to 80 to 90% we've made that kind of connection. So now we've just got to kind of fill in the gaps. We're going to have to let 1 or 2 go, maybe 1 or 2 more come in, and then we've got to get that connection right. This is still, I know I might sound like a broken record, but it's still a very young team with a new coach who's coming with different ideas, a different structure, a different way to play. Now, again, these players have probably played numerous games with other teams where they've played a certain style. Now, again, we look back on certain players that have played in this team. There was 8 players that played in one of my games that have made their EFL debut this year. Some of them are young, some of them are foreign, which have been fantastic, and they're all still adapting. So this whole season about Oldham, yeah, we want to do this, we want to do that. We still think we're still going through this process of still learning and trying to create our identity back. Now, an identity just doesn't come like that. Let's face it, it takes time. Now, even with time, you've got to build a foundation. There's no point in building a beautiful house if it's got a rocky, unstable foundation. We've got to build a proper foundation so that even when we do make a mistake, we're falling back, but we're not falling too deep. We're falling nice and solid, and we can rebuild again. This is the main thing that when I first took over, I wanted to bring in, and the owner loved this idea and the players. So this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring Oldham back to where they belong. Now, if we go back in 1, 2, 3, 4 years and go to the front, we're going to be straight back down again, because it's a different ball game now. We have to have an identity and a structure in place that when we do start bringing in different people, they can just slide in and kind of take this club to that next level.
Okay, Chris Stott says, I'd like to raise a question around squad rotation and the number of changes made each week, which varies. Injuries aside, I don't think we've managed to have the same team for consecutive games on many occasions. While we should adapt where necessary to teams, what is your view on what extent a settled, consistent team, and certainly a settled back four, he says, can contribute to more consistent results? And what's the rationale for the present policy of seemingly several changes per match? He also asks about loan players and the number of loan players where he suggests that because I think you've got more than you can only play so many, you can only play 5 or have loan players. You can only select 5. So he's suggesting somebody's going to miss out every week as well. A bit convoluted, to be honest with the question.
We have 7 loans, so 2 are going to miss.
That's right. That's the point he's alluding to, yeah.
If we look at the loan situation, I'm sure if we go to other teams are in this situation as well. I mean, you're looking at trying to bring players in, and let's face it, we're living in difficult times. So we can't just go out there and always go out there and buy players. We're going to have to use the loan system to be able to bring better players in to help out and to bring in. So we do have 7. My loan players know that 2 of them will have to miss out. And that's something that I'll have to manage. Regarding the question about squad rotation, that's a good question, because it's a question that I believe in. Let alone that when I was a player, you always want to play. But again, we're playing in difficult times. I could understand if we had a facility like Liverpool or Man United where you could come in and get your massages and your food and your treatments and all that kind of stuff, and you had your flights and all your travel and your recovery kits and everything was done for you. I can understand that you could constantly put out the same players week in, week out. But even then, the best teams in the world don't do it. I know Liverpool kind of stick to that structure, but let's have a look at Pep Guardiola's team. Now, I'm not saying or suggesting that, but he has a squad rotation. Now, there's a thing that I believe, right? that when you look at it, if you constantly play the same team, right? Constantly play the same team, week in, week out, which everyone goes, that's the best way to do it. Yes, it is, because they have that connection, they have that spirit, they know the movement of people. But what happens if 2 or 3 players get injured? Okay, so you keep dropping in 1 or 2 players, right? Okay, they're getting there. But these 1 or 2 players that are not playing week in, they're only getting 20 minutes, or they're only getting 10 minutes, or they only get 5 minutes. Where's their kind of natural ability coming through? So they're going to have to play 3 or 4 games consistently to kind of get that out. Now let's have a look at the Liverpool team at the moment. They're ran down by a few injuries, right, which is not great. And they've had to adapt to different players coming in. Now these players need time to adjust. Like Shaqiri, for example, I think he's a wonderful player, but he needs 1 or 2 more games, 90 minutes under his belt, to really see what he's capable of doing. Now, for me, that's if you play in a squad that's having that squad rotation, especially in a time like this. I'm only talking this year, right? Where you're playing Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. Take the Tuesday, Saturday out of it. If you just play Saturday, 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 right? The team would not complain because they're playing a week game, because that's what you're normally used to. So if you could actually create an environment where the Tuesday team was the Tuesday team and the Saturday team was the Saturday team, would there be a problem? Look, it would be, because a lot of footballers want to play week in, week out, and their mentality is, no, I need to play every single game. But again, we don't have the facility to kind of keep up with what the demands are of football. So keeping squad rotation fresh, I think, is vital, because every player needs to be ready to go out there and play. And yes, you can't help injuries or slight injuries. So you want to make sure players are fully healthy, at least running at a 90 to 100% when they go out there. So if you can have that squad rotation, I think it's vital.
Okay, well, let me give you an example. I'm one of your players, and I rat-a-tat-tat on your door and said, I'm fit and available, okay? And I want to... Great illustration you've used there, by the way, because I hope I'm right in saying this. I mean, fundamentally, a football player should want to play football, and I'm sure that is the case. You know, and you say, well, you can't play this week, Jack, because I've got, you know, I want to, you might want to save me, you might want to say have a rest or something like that. I mean, is that difficult to get that message across I mean, I think what I would assess that, because I mean, blimey, you know, what do I know? I'm 68 now, but is that a more modern day assessment of the current football player's life?
I watched well, actually, I heard of Eddie Jones's interview for the England rugby team.
Oh yeah,
he talked about one of the players being so-called dropped, and he went, dropped? What do you mean dropped? And the guy said, oh, well, he's not playing. He says, no. So here's the problem. His role's not dropped. His role's changed for the team, right? So that's how you'd explain it. You say, look, your role now is not for this game. Your role's different. Your role has got to be prepared to be able to come on and win this game. This is different. This is what I need you to do. It's not the word dropped. It's changed now. And I think that's the key that the players must understand. It's not, oh, well, I'm not playing that, then I'm dropped. It's no. Your role's changed, because in this game here, I need this player to tire this player out for 60 or to 70 minutes. And then I need you to come on and finish the game. Now, this player is going to do all the hard work. You're going to get the glory. But next week, guess what? Your role then is to do the opposite for the other player. So for me, that's how I would explain it.
Yeah, no, that's very, very good. Right, Mark Harrington, if someone came up with £100,000 and the transfer window was still open, what positions would you like to strengthen in today's market as well? This is a double barrel question from Mark. In today's market, what value would he put on? Is it Keeler done or Keller done? And how far do you think he could go? That's a question from Mark.
Well, 100 grand. I don't think it's going to get you much.
It might get me.
Yeah,
even at my age. I think
you may be able to get a player. You may be able to get a player with that.
Exactly.
So if I was looking to strengthen, I mean, look, at the moment, like I said, you're always going to be conceding goals. So and you'd always want to be scoring more goals. So you'd probably look for to buy another striker, more competition up top, more goals. You know, if if you can score more goals, that kind of puts the opposition away. You know, if you had 5 chances in the first half and you put 3 of them away, and you're 3-0 up at half time, you feel kind of comfortable going out second half. You know, if you buy a centre half and you miss 5 chances and it's still 0-0 at half time, you're still thinking, wow, I may have to change something going forward here. So yeah, I'd probably buy a striker.
It's not easy, this football manager lark, is it, to be honest with you?
Well, like
this is from Facebook. No, it isn't. It isn't. I mentioned our Bill before, he was a different era, but he was managed at Notts County and Mansfield, and he was assistant at Port Vale.
Was there another question about?
Wasn't any easier.
Jack, was there a question about Davis done there?
Yes, there was. Yeah.
Okay.
Kayla Dunn, how far do you think he could go? That came from Mark.
I think look, for me, he's a huge talent. I don't think he realizes the talent that he's got. He has quite a unique ability to be able to receive a ball and to be able to turn and blow past people. Once he sticks to simplifying that, he'll be a fantastic player.
Before I ask you this next question, which is from Facebook, just trying to unfold a little bit of that situation. I'm talking in general terms now, because you've been in dressing rooms as a player, obviously with some really top class international players, etc. Now you're in the managerial chair. Are the most talented players the more difficult to handle?
No. You know what? And I remember speaking to Slaven Bilic about this. And I met him for a coffee and we were just chatting, and I wanted to ask him about Poyet.
Yeah.
What was Poyet like at West Ham? And I asked him, I said, what was he like? Because reading through the papers, he was a sport brat, he was this, he was that, and he was causing that. He goes, Harry, he was the best professional that I had. He goes, never a peep out of him. He worked all the time. He did everything possible. He was perfect for me. And I said, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, the one thing, Harry, and you know this, he goes, with top players, you don't get attitude, because they're top athletes. They go out there and they do their work. And if they play, right? Of course they want to play. But if their role was to sit on the bench or their role was something different, they would not complain. All you got to do is make sure you give them the information that you need them to take out in the field. So for me, you don't get a problem with top players. And I'm not just saying, like, even at League Two, when you look at League Two, there's top players in League Two. You don't get problems with top players.
Good answer. This comes from Facebook. There's no name to this, but it says, good luck from everyone in Australia. And he wants to know, whoever it is, what happened to the Aussie we signed? It says here, question mark.
George Blackwood, he's coming back. He unfortunately had an injury that put him out for up to 2 months, which was a shame, because he had done really well. He had scored a couple of great goals for us, and he was starting to find his feet. But no, he's now he's back. He's running, and give him a couple more weeks of training, then he'll be back in the squad.
Okay, this comes from Sean Muldowney. What are your plans moving forward? Are you already thinking about next season?
Look, as a football manager, you're always thinking 6 months in advance of what you can improve on, what you're looking for in your squad, what can you do. Look, I'll be honest with you all now. My contract is only for the year, so I'm still fighting to move forward. We have to see where that goes.
David Walton says, do you have control on players joining and leaving, or is that down to a sporting director and or the board of directors?
Well, this is a question that's been around Oldham for a while now. And for me personally, working with the chairman and the sporting director has been perfect. I'm not going to lie. I have a structure, me personally, that you put players on the park, then I can actually judge them. We have a great working relationship, me and the sporting director, and we talk every single day. There's no. I think I talk to him more than my wife at the moment. So we speak constantly on all that, and we have ideas on players of what we like. He goes out and finds them, then he brings them to me, and then we have a look, and then I get the final say on if this player is worthy enough to be in our team or if he's not.
Paul Lawson in Aberdeen. I noticed this morning, by the way, that there's a place in Aberdeenshire which was the coldest place in the UK on record. Anyway, Paul Lawson, earlier on today, somewhere in Aberdeenshire. There's a lot of questions here, Harry, from Paul. Blimey. What's the scouting process ahead of a game? Can you briefly describe the build-up ahead of a home game? Maybe that's in reference to the current pandemic we all have to live with. What's the thing you're most proud of since you joined Oldham, and what's your biggest regret? There's another 4 or 5 questions from Paul, but let's just leave that there and digest those first 4. Scouting process ahead of a game. Can you briefly describe the build-up ahead of a home game?
Okay, so the scouting process before a game is usually I'll personally watch, because again, very rarely you can get to games now. So you have to either I follow them. If you're not playing yourself, you have to I follow them or catch up on. My analysts will send me the games, and then I'll sit down and I'll probably watch the last 3 to 4 games. And when I say I won't just watch the games, I'll watch for certain movements, certain patterns, because I'll be honest with you, is I don't think the middle section of the park is something that you need to kind of concentrate on. It's usually the first third and the last third where the majority of the ball is played, especially in League Two. So they're the kind of bits where I kind of watch. As far as preparation goes for a home game, I usually send my players in about 3 hours before the game for a pre-match meal. So we get in there, we have a pre-match meal. They chill out, they're relaxed, they're not worried about rushing into work or rushing in before the game or they're stuck behind. They can sit and chill, have a coffee, chat amongst themselves, walk around, get a massage if they like. And then usually around about 1 o'clock, I'll do a team meeting, get them prepared, give them just enough information for them to go away and think about it, give them time if they need to ask me any questions or my staff any questions. And then come 1:30, they'll prepare for the game.
What's the thing you're most proud of since you joined Oldham, and what's your biggest regret?
I think the thing I'm most proud of is what we're slowly building. It takes time to build something at a football club. I started it when I first got into management. I started it with Crawley, and then it's kind of that planting a tree and wonder if it's going to grow, and you're nursing it and you're feeding it and you're waiting for that first bit of sprout to come out. And we've had little bits of sprouts now at Oldham, and they're only green leaves at the moment, so we really want to see some nice beautiful flowers or some nice bits of fruit come out from it, but we're still got to wait for that. So that's the thing I'm proud of, is that we've planted something and we can see it starting to grow, but if we don't look after it, it can all fall apart and not grow. So I'm quite excited about that. Biggest regret? Well, there's no regrets. I don't think you should have regrets, because I think you should be able to make mistakes, but you've got to learn by the mistakes. And so why should you have regrets?
We're moving on here. I think somebody asked you a question earlier on, Harry, and they gave you £100,000 to sign a player. We're moving forward here with Paul from Aberdeen. He says, if you were given £1 million for transfers, I've got to be honest though, even £1 million nowadays, I mean, it's way out of my sphere, but it's still not a lot of money in football terms, is it?
No, well, look, you'd definitely be able to buy 3 great players then. Right. 3 great players. And yeah, I think I'd know who I'd buy as well.
Right. Okay, that's good. Yeah. Well, you clearly don't want to share the list, but
no,
that's understandable, mate.
Yeah. That's
understandable.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Lottery's still available. You know what I mean? Gamble sensibly and responsibly, folks, if you're going on that, by the way. Right, we're still with Paul's questions, actually, Paul. Quite good questions. These are a couple I was going to chuck in myself, but I'll let Paul take the credit. Who were the most skillful and toughest players you played with and or against?
Oh, so go on. This is in my career.
Well, yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Let's just stick to your playing career.
Yeah.
You know, the
Okay. So
toughest
my playing career, probably the toughest kind of player. I mean, look, I remember when I first met Steven Gerrard when I was playing for Leeds, and he kind of was just getting into the team. He was playing right back.
I remember it. Yeah.
I remember like the team sheet came in, and obviously I was playing week in, week out, and he was just starting. And I remember the team sheet came out, and all the players were going, oh, Harry, you got this young player playing at right back. You know, Steve, you'll beat him. You know, there's you don't have to worry about him. And I'm not one for that. You know, I don't like looking at team sheets. I don't take people's word on players, because I like to see them with my own eyes. And I think when people sit there and they go, oh, no, you'll beat him. All you got to do is this. All you got to do is, no, look, let me concentrate on my game. Right? You concentrate on your game, I'll concentrate. And I just think it puts you in a false environment into your mind. And you just think, oh, okay, well, the main right back's not playing. So they've got a young kid playing. So, no, it should be all right. So that's what I didn't like. And I remember that game there, he actually gave me a horrid time. Like, he actually kicked lumps out of me. He was fast. He was furious. He was hungry. And like I said, I never liked that. And also, obviously, Gary Neville was always, I mean, he wasn't the hardest person to get round, but I'd say that as a professional player, as a right back that would constantly try and do the right things in football, he was difficult. And as far as playing with great players, yes, I have played with fantastic players throughout my career. But I say this all the time. My favorite player of all time is David Batty. He was a fantastic player to play against, because he was horrible. You know, he's one of these players that never gives the ball away. And then when I ended up playing with him, like, you could give the ball to him at any height, any level, under pressure, no pressure. He'd always have the ball. He'd play it simple, and he'd do his job, and he'd give it to the players that could make a difference. And I think a player like that is virtually, you know, unchangeable. And I think now in this day and age, we're constantly looking for players like that. I mean, look, the last kind of ones were Fabinho, you know, Fernandinho, obviously for Man City, has done a fantastic job like that. These players here, they're just, this is what people are looking for now, to release fullbacks. You know, because then they become like a third centre back, but they're also holding the midfield. But a lot of holding midfielders now still like to break forward. But players like David Batty, they're a dime a dozen. And if you can get your hand on one of them, by all means, take him.
He had a scrap with one of his own teammates when he was at Blackburn, and he wants David Batty.
Look, David Batty cut my lip, gave me 7 stitches on my upper lip. And he'd done that when he played for Newcastle. And then I remember signing, like, he signed for us. And I remember going up to him and saying, oh, Bats, how are you? He says, oh, yeah, I'm good. He says, oh, Bats, I mean, do you remember elbowing me? Yeah. Like, and gave me like 7 stitches up there. He goes, nah, and just walked away. That's fair enough.
Fair enough, yeah. Yeah,
but honestly, I loved
conversation.
Absolutely loved him. Thought he was a fantastic player and person.
Again, still on with Paul's questions in Aberdeen. Good questions, Paul. These. Who was your childhood footballing idol when you were growing up? In Sydney, I guess, weren't you? In Sydney?
Yeah, in Sydney. Like I said, I was a player, young player, that when everyone says, oh, who do you want to be, you know, when you grew up, and always wanted to be by myself. Always wanted to be myself. You know, I never really wanted to be anybody. But I suppose when it came down to it, I mean, one of my favorite players was probably Marco van Basten. I enjoyed watching him play. Thought he was a fantastic talent. So if anyone, it was probably, the 3 Dutchmen. It was Van Basten, Gullit, and Rijkaard.
What a hat trick of players they have. Right, it's an interesting one. Again, it's the last one from Paul, and there's only a couple more questions, Harry. So thanks again for doing this. Paul's final question is, I like things like this, I must admit. It makes you think. If you were organising a meal for 3, alive or no longer with us, who would you invite?
We've thought about this. You know, only 3 people.
Yep, you can have 3 people around the dining table, around the dinner table.
Right, and they can all speak like I can get a foreigner, but they can speak English, so there's no translation. It's
No, but just go. These are your personal choices, Harry. Go for it.
well, yeah. I mean, it's off the top of my head, but honestly, I'd have to say I'd have to have Maradona there.
Right.
I'd have Maradona. I'd have Tiger Woods, and
Yep.
I'd have to have Kevin Hart for banter.
Well done. Great answer. I mean, listen, difficult that, because an hour from now, on 10 minutes from now, you'll think, oh, I should have said somebody
Yeah,
else.
I know.
But it doesn't
I know,
matter, but it's
I know.
right off the top of your head. So you've answered Paul's question. Thanks, Paul, for those really good questions. Tracy Wright, only a couple more now, Harry. Can you explain the January transfer business question mark? Ins and outs overall. Did it fulfill your requirements? What targets did you set for the 2020-21 season? And are you on target to achieve them? That comes from Tracy.
Well, first and foremost, I'm not a huge fan of the January market. I'll just put it out there now, because I think your business should be done in the summertime. And I think if you needed people, or look, you can't help if people get bought in by your team. So then you have to make a move for someone else. So ideally, the January market's only there, in my opinion, is if you need a backup. If something's happened with one of your players for the first part of the season, or you need something ideally to change something. But hopefully you've done your work in the summertime. Look, when we look back at this January market, we got Marcel Hilberg in at the start of it, which was a fantastic buy. I think it was someone that I've always wanted, that kind of player to be involved in the squad, someone that's comfortable on the ball, someone that can bring a different dimension to my team, because I've got other players that can incorporate his kind of talent, and they kind of mix well now. We lost Danny Rowe, obviously, to Bradford. Like I said, I don't think you can ever stop anyone from getting bought from your players, which is a sign of you're doing very well and that player is doing very well if an opposition has come in to buy you. It's the same with Tom Hamer. Fantastic that he gets to move up to a higher level and play. And just seen recently, he got in the team of the week, which is excellent. So again, he's progressing well. So bringing in also Nicky Adams, for me, as much as we love youth and we love the vibrance of it, I think experience, you can't buy that. And with Nicky Adams coming in, the experience he's brought, the wealth of experience with the promotional side, the way he talks, the way he conducts himself is fantastic. So I know I needed that, and I need probably one or two more experienced players to help nestle the rest of my young squad. And the fact that I've brought in two youngsters, as in Marcus Barnes and Serhat, which I think are very attacking-minded young players that want to have the chance to start to put their career on the path that should be on.
For Football Manager, just give me your assessment on this. One said to me, in an ideal world, we're talking an ideal world here now, and I know we don't live in an ideal world, but maybe 3 players for every single position. You've got a starter, so that's your first choice. Then you've got somebody who's going to provide competition, and then you ideally you need somebody with potential just to push them on a bit as well.
I think personally, I think the 3 is too many.
Okay.
Because then I think you're going to get a lot of banging on your door, and I think there's only going to be so much.
I'd be first in that queue.
Your job today is that. The one thing I remember Rafa Benitez saying to me is saying that when you look at a squad, ideally you would love 2 world-class players for every position, and I think you're kind of covered, because when you have 2 players for every position. In this day and age now, every player should be able to play 3 or 4 positions. And that gives you cover enough to be able to cover all positions. So I think if you have 3, I think you're greedy. So I think if you can have 2, that gives each one that competition. So you're looking at the start of the season, well, there's my competition. That's who I got to beat to play. then the other person's looking and going, well, that's who I need to be to get into the squad. So I think two's enough to have that competition.
Okay, final few questions. These come from Philippa Whitaker. For 5 or 6 seasons, the Latics have had a poor home record. Is this due to weight of expectations on the players, or leaving the back door open, trying to prize open packed away defences? What's the best goal you... Oh, hang on. Well, just answer that one first of all, because the other ones are not really connected to Latics, but about, you know, your general footballing career, which are good questions, Philippa. So, last few seasons, poor home record. Is it due to the weight of expectation, or on the players, or leaving the back door open, trying to prize open packed away defences?
I think, honestly, I just think it's the foundation. Goes back to the foundation of what the club needs. You know, I think there's been a big revolving door at Oldham Athletic. I think there's been for managers and for players. And like I said, I think the one thing that football clubs needs at the moment, and I know we live in this world now where managers only get maybe 10 games. If they lose 8 games of them, that's it. They're out the door. We'll get someone else in to do it. Now, again, it takes time. Like I said, you come in there, and when you sit down for an interview, you give them your ideas and you say, this is what needs to happen. And this is what, and for all of us at that moment, they're like, yes, this is what we want. Yes. You know, I take, for example, what happened at Notts County, exactly what I did there. He wanted everything changed. And it's like, well, first and foremost, we've got to get your team right. So we've got to be able to get a basis where we have a good, solid foundation where we know where we're at. And it's like that at Oldham at the moment. We have to have a block. You know, we just can't keep falling. We've got to have a pivot where we actually say, well, this is it now. We're not dropping from here. This is our standard. This is where we've got to go from. And then we've got to slowly build from there and build from there. And like I said, once you keep building on that, when you do have a dip, you're not going to fall all the way down to the bottom. You're only going to fall a little bit, then you can grow again a little bit more. So I think the important thing is to have a good solid foundation, a good structure behind not only the playing squad, but a good structure behind the club, the fans, everyone getting on. Because this is not just a team. This is not just 11 men going out there on Saturday, or the squad or the team. This is an area that Oldham itself is hurt because of where they're being founded and now where they find themselves. Now it's going to take us, all of us, to get Oldham back up to where we want them to be, not just the football team. You know, it's going to take, you know, the coaching staff, it's going to take the ground staff, it's going to take the owner, it's going to take the fans, it's going to take the direct, it's going to take the supporters from all around the world. It's going to take every single one of us to be together and support each other through the rough times so that we can actually go up to be where we should be.
Yeah, good question, Philippa. Right, final 3 questions, all come from Philippa. What's the best goal you've scored, and why would you consider it to be the best?
I get asked this question a lot, right? Now, Philippa, you have to understand, every single goal you score is a great goal. It doesn't matter if it's from 40 yards, it doesn't matter if it's from 1 yard, and it doesn't matter if it's 5-0 up or 1-0 up. It's every goal, because your job, whether you're playing out wide or if you're playing as an attacker, your job is to stick that little round thing in the back of the net. So every goal is a great goal. Now, I know you can sit there, oh no, that's not true, you know, or you like that one there, like, okay, you can break it down to that. But that's my honest opinion, is that every goal is a great goal. But if you want to talk like some of the goals that I have scored, I mean, I did like my Arsenal one for Leeds. I enjoyed that one. I enjoyed the goal against Croatia in the World Cup to send us through. But I have to say, probably the one at Elland Road at Aston Villa, where we played Aston Villa, where they've just kicked off and I think the ball got booted up in the air and I ended up controlling it on my chest and then just hit it on the half volley and it just went straight in. So, well, that one.
Okay. I think you kind of touched on this previously with a question somebody else answered, Harry, but Philip says, who are your managerial role models?
Again, I don't feel, like I said, I don't look at role models and go, well, that's who I want to be. You know, that's who I like. I've taken like little bits of information from the managers that I got on well with, and how I like their structure. But like I said, I want to create my own identity as a coach, and hopefully I can bring something different to the game of football.
And finally, from Philip, would you be more interested in attacking players than defenders, given that they have one of the worst records for goals against in the EFL?
What was that question again? Sorry.
Are you more interested in attacking players rather than defenders? She makes reference to the fact that the goals that have been conceded this season.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you want to win football games, you've got to score goals. It's as simple as that. I think, look, you can have, I could pack out the defense. I could put 8 players behind the ball, but we may not score. Don't get me wrong. We may not concede, but we won't win any games because we have to score. So unfortunately, we live and die by our own opinions of the game. But like I said, you have to score to win games, and you can sit there and be defensively and be happy to draw a game. I'm not. I love winning. I want to win, and I want to go out there and make my team want to win. I want my team to go out there and expect to score. Yeah, you know what? We may find ourselves open at times, but we're going to have the courage to go out there and try to get that 3 points first and foremost.
Right. Well, that concludes the question. So thank you for that, Harry. I mean, I'm just interested myself. I'm going to do a very straightforward general question. So how did a guy, you were brought up in Sydney, weren't you? Which is massive rugby league territory, by the way.
Yeah.
I am passionate about rugby league. So
I'm a big Bulldogs fan anyway.
Yeah. A pal of mine, Phil Kinsella, messaged me when he said, asked him about the Bulldogs, who are not doing great at the moment. But you're a Canterbury Bankstown Bulldog, aren't you? He told me that, Phil. Yeah, I didn't know that. So, did you watch a bit of the Rhinos when you were playing for Leeds? Did you go to watch the Rhinos?
Yeah, I watched 1 or 2 games, but like I said, once I got over here, I was virtually concentrating on football. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you, first of all, on the subject of rugby league, first of all, I tried to project this because I do rugby league programs for the BBC as well, and I try. In Queensland and New South Wales, the 2 territories, 2 states of Australia, people don't get this, but rugby league in particularly, it might have widened out now to other areas in Australia, but particularly, it is front page, back page, centre. It's just like our Premier League football here. Is that fair?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. It's big, isn't it?
It's huge.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah.
It's a fantastic sport. And they're only progressing it to another level. It's like the A-League. If you want to play in the best leagues in the world, you want to come over to Europe, to play in the best leagues. If you want to be one of the best NRL players, you got to get yourself to Australia, because that's where the best are playing.
Correct.
I think it's like I said, from when I used to watch it to nowadays, look, it's completely evolved. It's a bit like football. Everything evolves. I think the speed of it now, the intensity, some of the challenges that you see. I mean, these guys are like warriors, and they're athletes, and they're just fantastic to watch. And like I said, for the first time you watch it, it's like, oh, wow, really? How is this possible? How is it possible that a sport like this? I mean, you're looking at NFL, and the way that they're guarded with their helmets and their pads, and their shoulder pads and all that, and then they're running into each other from a yard out, and then they're crunching and then they're pulling them up, and then you got these guys that virtually 10 to 15 yards away from each other, flying into each other at full force with no body protection, and I'm sure they don't even wear the shoulder guards now. It's incredible, but they've taken it to another level where even like the art of tackling is looked at, by professionalism, that you can't do dangerous challenges, but even the art of challenging now, where you can get into the right area without hurting both you or the opponent. So again, it's a great sport. And yeah, I've lost a little bit of contact with it, because obviously now coaching, all I do is watch football. But if I ever do get to see it on TV, I'll always sit and watch 10 to 15 minutes of it.
If we ever get back to actually attending games in grounds, I'll take you to a game. There's enough, and we'll have fun. Listen, just finally, and again, thanks so much for doing this. So, just briefly, I'm intrigued in this. So, how did a young 14-year-old brought up in Sydney end up at Leeds United? And you've cut at Leeds United, didn't you, in the early days?
Yeah, well, again, I obviously love football. I always said I wanted to play at the highest level, wanted to go into Europe. I was at an academy where we got offered Big Brother scholarships. And my coach had a squad of, I think, 12 or 14 players, and he had 6 to give out. And what the scholarship does, it gives you an opportunity to go and fulfill a month of learning, studying, understanding what it's like to be a professional footballer. They do it for all like musicians, swimmers, dancers, and all that. So, but Big Brother did it for football this year. So me and Brett Emerton had the opportunity to travel over and have a month's trial with Leeds United, and I mean, what an experience that was. I lived in Holbeck, which was just down the road from Ellen Road. We used to walk every day in the morning, me and Brett, to Ellen Road, and we trained for a month. We got to see Premier League games, train with the youth team, live the life of a youth team player, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it, and I wanted nothing more than to come over here and be a part of that. I was fortunate enough to have enough impact on the time that I trained and played that the manager at the time, at the youth team manager, was Paul Hart. He saw enough in me to offer me a contract, which I jumped at, and then I from that February I went back. I finished my schooling. I mean, well, when I say I finished my schooling, I was at school. Whether my mind was elsewhere, I had a World Cup to play for the under-17s. I played in that, and then I went straight over and started my career at Ellen Road. And I started that year in was it 96 or 97, and was about 6 months later I made my debut for the first team.
And just finally, did you get to know, or was there a guy who played in that team around that time? Did he go on to be in Westlife or something like that? I forgot that quite wrong. Nicky Byrne. Yeah. He was part of that era, wasn't he?
He signed the same time as me from Ireland. Nicky Byrne. He was our goalkeeper. There was Simon Briggs and Nicky Byrne. So he was the goalkeeper, and we lived together. We were like brothers. We were either fighting or best friends. So, but the one thing I could always say, everyone used to say, but he always used to sing. I mean, Boyzone was huge at that time, and all he would do was just sing. So every time he'd be just singing, and he actually had a good voice. So I didn't mind him singing. Actually, when we weren't fighting, he was singing, and he was actually fine. So, but no, Nicky was a fantastic character, very funny, and like I said, for him to be able to, like, he loved football. Then obviously when it didn't quite make it for him to come back and well, the rest is history. Really, he's one of the biggest bands in the world ever. So fantastic to him.
Absolutely. Listen, Harry, it's been great and thanks very much indeed for being so honest and open. And it's great to get an insight into you guys, to be perfectly truthful with you. And I'm sure I speak on behalf of everybody that's a really good hour. Lots of things to digest as well. Just from my behalf, good luck for the remainder of the season. I will see you soon. I think Bolton at Boundary Park in the early part of March. Yeah. So if we don't catch up before, we'll catch up then. And on behalf of everybody else, the trust and everybody, and I just think it's really, really good to get that insight. It's not often we get the opportunity, especially to a very a good player, an experienced player, and you've done a bit of everything. And you even like rugby league, so that's the most important thing of all, to be honest with you. The greatest team sport in the whole world, mate. You know what I mean?
Thank you, Jack. Thank you.
Listen, have a great remainder of the season. All the best. Thanks very much, Harry. Thank you. I think Paul wants to just come back now and say a few things, but if he does, from me, that's fantastic. Thank you. Soon. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jack, and thanks to you as well, Harry. I mean, it's been really, really fascinating to get to a bit of your football philosophy and what's going on at Latics and your players and everything else. Thanks for answering the questions, and thanks to the guys for putting them in. And finally, Carl Evans and Mikey at the football club for their part in getting this together. It has took a while. You've been on 2 games a week virtually the whole season. I think this is one of the few weeks where you didn't have a midweek game. So thank you very much for that. And I'm sure that we might be able to do this again sometime, and hopefully the fans and the members will have enjoyed listening and watching this interview. Thanks a lot to everybody. Cheers.
Let's do it when we've got something to celebrate. That's a good idea, isn't it? Let's do it when we've got something to celebrate.
Yes. Yeah.
Thanks, Harry.
All right.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Thanks very much.